YouTube, what's going on, man? It's Father Dark. And today I want to talk about something that I feel like people are probably going to get irritated with me about. And, the reason that I say that is I'm just going to kind of give you guys a little bit of a preface and then I'll get into the video in a particular subject. But something I've noticed from making content since pretty much the game is released is that people get they're very passionate about characters in the game that they like. And there's a lot of people that they have particular characters that they really want to come out, and when those characters don't come out, or when things get leaked and stuff like that, a lot of people just kind of jump on it immediately and they go, okay, well, this must be what it is. I saw this, or I heard about this, or this is the thing that I'm really into, so this has to be what it is. And kind of like an example is like with Blade. When Blade was first talked about in the game, or people saw him in I believe it's the Midtown map. I can't remember exactly, which I call the Dracula map, but the one where Blade was chained up and stuff like that. And then people started seeing his model in the game, in the files and stuff like that. And they immediately said, okay, well, Blade's coming. He's gonna be coming next season. It's gonna be Blade and it's gonna be Ultron. And any video that I made where I kind of gave my predictions for what would be happening based off of different leaks and stuff in the game, there were so many people in the comments that really got offended. Like, but Blade is coming. Hot Topic made a T-shirt with Blade on it, and I said, well, they used the picture that's been available in the files for a long time. It's not like I think that they're getting inside information from the Marvel Rivals devs. I think they just kind of like did what most people did, and they just assumed that these are the characters that will be coming, right? Because there's a picture for them. Same thing with Ultron. Ultron was actually teased all the way back or not teased, but he was found by data miners in the files back in like December, like early December. And for a lot of people don't follow the leakers and stuff like that on Twitter, because Twitter is where they predominantly, you're going to find all the leakers, and there's a lot of people that repost what the leakers, post and stuff like that. But that's like where content creators like myself and other, really big content creators, much bigger than myself, where they get their information from. A lot of times I go to make a video about something, I get a notification on my phone, hey, this was just leaked, or we data mined this or whatever. And before I can even put a video out, there's probably 40 other creators that have kind of jumped on it. And, just to kind of explain to you guys what's happening is that as a content creator, it's like the news, right? Like nobody wants to put a news story out 5 days after it's happened, or even a day later. It's breaking news is the most interesting thing because it's new, it's fresh, it's what people want to know about and stuff. And of course, there's multiple different news agencies that'll put stuff out. But when it comes to things that are data mined in the files and new skins and stuff like that, there's kind of like this rush to get that information out. And these people can only go off of what the data miners are finding. And data miners simply just look in the files and they see things that are there. But for the last couple of months, data miners have been finding all types of stuff, right? Like, for example, there's been like 13 or 14 different characters that have been leaked, and there could be different things. There's voice lines sometimes that they find, like, there's been voice lines for Captain Marvel, Deadpool, all types of stuff, right? Sometimes it's a character model. Sometimes there's even whole entire, their kits and stuff are available in the files. But you have to think about it though. If there's 14 different characters that are already being worked on, and they're partial bits of their kits or models or whatever it is that they have are in the game files, they all can't be coming out. We're only getting 2 characters per season. And even though the devs have came out and said that, they're going to start speeding up the process, because originally they were only going to do 2 characters within a 3-month period. That's about how long a season would normally last. But they just came out recently in the last couple of days and said that they were actually going to be speeding up the process in regards to how fast they release characters, basically saying the seasons would start lasting for 2 months and they would release a new character every month, right? So you just kind of do the math on that, right? And if there's way more characters than that, then they can't release them all at once. So, the point that I'm making is like I said before, a lot of people get very passionate about their character, and they almost kind of get offended when their character isn't coming out. I've seen people going back and forth in the comments. People with me, they'll say, oh, well, this character has been confirmed. I lost count. All you have to do is go through any of my previous videos before the new information got released for the season and see how many people were like, oh, Blade is definitely coming. Oh, there's people who think Doom is coming to the game, right? Like I could just go on and on about people who they've heard from a different creator. Oh, well, this leak is, it's been verified. And I'm like, verified by who? And like, no, it's been confirmed. I'm like, the devs have a page where they let us know all the stuff that's actually been confirmed. If anyone else says it besides them, then it hasn't actually been confirmed. We're all just assuming. And like I said, there's so many creators that, myself included, the difference is that when I make videos and I say, hey, these people could potentially be coming or they've been leaked, I always make sure to preface that and say that we don't know for sure. Not saying that other creators don't, but there are a lot of creators that, obviously want clicks and views. A lot of us that we're monetized, we're doing, we make these videos and at the end of the day, we want to be paid. And we know that if you build up hype around something or you get people really interested in something, they're going to be more likely to click on it and stuff, right? But, me, I try to be objective and I try to actually really think about what's realistically going on. So to kind of get into it, right? I was thinking about the whole thing. Now, Emma Frost, she's actually been confirmed. We've heard from the devs, Emma Frost is coming. We've seen literally everything for her. The streamers have gotten a hold of her and been able to have like whole entire days or however long they had access to or early access to be able to play. There's nothing we haven't seen. We know for a fact Emma Frost is coming, right? That is not up for debate. That's something that has been verified and confirmed to be happening, right? But then Ultron, we saw Ultron in the trailer. And it's really funny, right? Like earlier, because I couldn't find anything about Ultron. So I went on to ChatGPT like any other millennial plus, type of individual to just see. I'm like, hey, is there any verified stuff for Ultron, to know if he's actually coming to the game? Because I personally haven't heard anything from the devs. And it's really funny because you think about like the Fantastic Four, we were told that the Fantastic Four were coming. It wasn't, there was no like secret, or anything like that. It was just simply, we're getting Reed Richards and Sue Storm first, and then we're getting Johnny Storm and the Thing after the fact. Now, we didn't see gameplay and stuff for the latter of the two characters, but at the same time, there was confirmation that they were coming to the game in within that, complete season, just the latter half of it, right? So, like I said, I go to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT, it can be wrong. It's not perfect yet. That's why it gets updated every so many weeks. It goes from, it's only been out for so long and it's already like in its 5th iteration at this point, right? Or that's like the beta version or whatever. But like I said, it's regularly getting updated because it's not perfect. It pretty much just pulls from like every part of the internet and gives you like a generalized answer based off of that, right? But for the most part though, usually it is, I'd say like 97% of the time it's right for the most part. So I go to ChatGPT. I ask it, hey, is Ultron coming? And it basically was like, yes, he's confirmed to be coming, and we know that from the trailer. And then it said something really interesting. It was like, yeah, we saw gameplay for him in the trailer. And I'm like, we didn't see any gameplay for Ultron. What are we talking about? We just saw him in the trailer. Now, I know that a lot of people are going to sit back and they're going to say, bro, he was in the trailer. Why would they show him in the trailer if he wasn't going to be there? Let's just think about the history and the track record of Marvel Rivals here and how they've done just releases of characters and trailers for seasons and all types of stuff, right? So first we had Doom. Doom was the main villain for the first season, right? He's the reason why all of this stuff was happening originally, et cetera, et cetera. Now I'm gonna be honest, the lore is really complex and deep for Marvel Rivals in regards to the storyline and all that stuff. Like I've said in a previous video, I tried to watch a YouTube video explaining the lore, and it was literally like 3.5 or 4 hours long. And it wasn't like this guy was dragging it out. He was just explaining it from start to finish. And this was only up to like the first season, right? So that's kind of OD in a good way, but that's a lot, right? Ended up falling asleep like 45 minutes in. Nonetheless, though, from what I understand, Doom was the villain for the first part. He was the reason why all this stuff was happening to begin with, et cetera, right? Did we get Doom? No, right? First season, which is actually kind of like the second season, technically, because it was like season 0, then season 1. So second season, who was the villain? Dracula. Did we get Dracula at any point? No. Okay. Then also, like I said, people were just completely convinced that Blade was coming. I mean, and why wouldn't they be, right? There was this whole buildup to Blade. We could literally see him tied up in Dracula's lair or dungeon, whatever you want to call it. He's chained up in there. And then at the end of the season, he was freed and released. So it would have made complete sense to have him as, be one of the main characters, right? And then Ultron, because he had been, his full entire kit had been leaked, just like with Reed Richards. That's the only time I've seen that where we've actually seen like the little page that shows you all their abilities with their not character model, but like the picture of them and stuff like that, like the official one that you see when you go to see the move sets in game and stuff like that. I had never actually seen that with any other character. Usually when people leak the abilities, they just say what they saw in the game files, but to actually have that picture was different. So, and like I said, that was all the way back in December. So he seemed like he was one of the most fleshed out characters, and that it would make sense that he would be one of the next ones coming. So that's why a lot of people assumed Blade and Ultron were the ones that were coming. But look at where we are now. Is Blade a character this season? Not that we know of. I mean, to our knowledge, we haven't seen anything about him, heard anything else about him. It's just kind of like radio silence in regard to Blade. But like I said, though, Ultron is supposed to be the villain of this season, and I just, from what we've seen in the past, it doesn't make sense that we have a villain, like somebody who's like the main villain of the season, and then we're getting him as a character. That's not how that's worked. Now, once again, I'm just being objective here. I could be wrong. It could be a situation where they put it right in front of our faces, we're seeing it, whatever, and that's the case. But I just kind of think it's weird that they haven't said anything about the fact that, because like I said, there is no official type of anything that has come. I have done lots of digging, lots of research and stuff like that, and I can't find a single thing where anybody from any type of official channel, meaning like from the actual Marvel Rivals devs or any of their pages or anything like that, or anywhere where they've mentioned it or said it was coming or said he was coming. I haven't found anything like that. And I just think it's interesting. And another thing that's really interesting too is that over on X, but I call it Twitter still. I don't like calling it X. It just seems so weird to me. But nonetheless, though, over on Twitter, one of the people that I consistently rely on, because there's a lot of people that say like, "Oh, this is happening," and then once it actually comes down to it, it's nothing like that. It's just people who are just making up stuff, or they had their information wrong, whatever the case may be. But one of the main leakers that I actually trust, that has been pretty much right like every single time, is someone called XOX_leaks or leak, and they're like a team of people. They just pretty much, like I said, they just go straight into the files. They look, and they're really good at pattern recognition. So they understand like this is the potential that a character might release based off of how their files are being implemented to the game and at what pace. And one of the things that they found not too long ago was that Professor X actually has like his whole move set and stuff, along with a lot of other stuff in the game. Now, like I said, I don't data mine, so you know what I mean. Like I don't know what to look for or how to do any of that stuff, or anything like that. I'm pretty sure if I took enough time, I could figure it out. But it's just not something that I do, right? But based off of what they were saying, it seems like Professor X is actually the next character. Now, once again, this is all just speculation. We don't know what they're doing. They've already said they have a lot of characters that are ready to go. Like they basically made this stuff ahead of time, and they're just kind of, as they go along, choosing who they want to release, whether that be because they're going back and they're changing stuff and altering stuff. Maybe they make a character and they realize like, you know what, based off of what the current meta is or what people are looking for, what there's a lack of, we're going to release this character first. Like with Ultron. Ultron might have been planned to come out before the Fantastic Four, but maybe they decided like, nah, you know what? Maybe there'll be more hype for the Fantastic Four, or maybe their abilities are better suited for that season, or whatever. Maybe we need to go back and change some of his stuff because it's too similar to someone else. Whatever, like, yeah, but whatever the case may be, they didn't release him yet. He hasn't been released yet. And for whatever reason that is, we don't know. But like I said, a lot of people I know are really excited for Ultron to come to the game. I know that because any of the videos that I've made concerning Ultron, like I just released a short where I was just simply explaining the comic book origins, because a lot of people only know Ultron from the MCU movies, and the MCU movies had to take a completely different approach with Ultron, simply because at the time when he first came out, Ant-Man didn't exist, so they couldn't use the fact that Hank Pym was the one that originally created him, etc. They just went with Tony Stark, which makes sense for the MCU and the way the story was going and stuff. But like I said, I made a little short just talking about that. That's been one of the best ones that I've had this month so far. Same thing on TikTok and stuff like that. So I know that there's a really big interest for Ultron, that a lot of people are excited for him, especially the healer community, because he was, it was said that he was going to be a healer, right? From his leaked, kit and stuff like that. But at the same time, Professor X is also going to be a healer. So to me, it wouldn't be that far fetched that maybe they're like, you know what, we're already releasing, a season about X-Men and stuff like that. Let's go ahead and release another X-Men character. And Professor X was said to be a healer as well. And from his move set, it kind of seems like he's going to kind of have like the potential to boost people or something. Like, I can't remember. I think it was like called hero potential or something like that was one of the moves. It was something potential, but it just kind of made me think about like Mantis, the way that she can boost up to like 3 people at a time and give them a damage and healing boost and stuff like that. So I could see them doing something like that. And like I said, with Ultron, maybe they're thinking like we already have too many flyers, or maybe we need to like work on his kit, or maybe they just decided to implement him. They thought he'd be better as just a villain to the story and release some other characters. I mean, there's like infinite things that they could be sitting back and, I would love to be a fly on the wall in those meetings and stuff and hear how they come up with the things they come up with and the releases, and all that kind of stuff. But like I said, though, that's just me personally. I do think it's interesting that we haven't actually got any real confirmation and people are just jumping on it. I read an article from right before I made this video because I was still just, let me just make sure that I'm not missing something because I hate to make this video and people are like, well, actually, they did say this here, whatever. Which I don't mind you guys doing that. If I'm wrong about something, I have absolutely zero problem admitting that I'm wrong, but like I said, this isn't a right or wrong thing. It's just me kind of speculating based off of what I know and what we actually don't know, which we don't know for a fact that he's being released. But like I said, I read an article from it's a website called like GG something. I think it's like GG series or something like that. And it's really interesting. Like, because what I had Googled was, is Ultron actually coming or is he confirmed or something like that? And the first part of the article, they say, yeah, from what we know in the trailer, he's confirmed and he's coming. But then at the same time, they said in the same paragraph, they're like, well, there actually hasn't been any confirmation from the Marvel Rivals devs, but it's extremely likely based off of the trailer. And I find that very strange because I don't think that we've actually had that before where it's been a complete mystery who the next character was. And, like I said, I think it's also weird that they're making Ultron like the villain for that season simply because we haven't had a case before where someone has been a villain and they've actually become a playable character. So that's just my thoughts on it. I do think it's really interesting though, but like I said, as usual, I'd love to hear what you guys have to say in the comments. My only thing is please don't tell me that it's verified because it is not. I have done more than enough research to see that it is not actually verified that he's going to be the second character. And like I said, I don't have a problem. Like I would love to have Ultron. He's another healer. I'm main healers, just because I don't really trust other people to heal for me a lot of times. I just feel like I never get healed when someone else is the healer. I think they just kind of auto lock on the tanks and they're just kind of like, I'm gonna heal this tank until I can't heal anymore, but if you're anything other than that, I just feel like I'm not getting healed. So and even when I'm a tank, I feel like they don't really push up with me a lot of times. So I'd rather be the healer than not be the healer when it really comes down to it a lot of times in competitive, etc. So like I said, I don't have a problem with them coming. It's not I feel like I said, I feel like a lot of people they're like but it was in the trailer, or no, but his kit, it was leaked and blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, bro, all you have to do is think about Blade. There are people who are still confused about that. They're like, well, what was the point of freeing Blade? It's like, bro, you didn't personally free him. That's just what do you think? Blade was going to stay chained up in Dracula's dungeon or basement or whatever it is forever? I mean, come on, man. No, eventually he was going to leave, but that just doesn't mean that just because something happens in the story that, that those actual characters are, going to be coming to the game, because we're only getting so many at a time. And maybe they still want to work on kits and all that kind of stuff. But nonetheless, though, I'm rambling at this point. Just let me know in the comments what you guys think. You think he's coming and I'm out here tweaking and I'm just overthinking it? Do you also think it's interesting that there hasn't been some type of official confirmation, whereas we've gotten those in the past, who the next characters were going to be or character? I mean, I know this season was different simply because we got 2 each half of the season, 4 in total for the season. But, like I said, do you think it's kind of weird that we haven't, really heard anything else about that, and that he's also like the villain and, he has like his own map, which is also kind of, strange in that sense. But I'm not saying that people don't, because you got like Black Panther, he's got his own map. Venom technically has like a symbiote map, Black Panther, et cetera. But I don't know. It's just something feels kind of off to me. And I feel like they're just kind of purposely keeping us on our toes because maybe there's, misdirection is their thing, or maybe it just makes for better content, hype. I don't know. But nonetheless, just let me know in the comments. I appreciate you guys for listening. This is Dark, and I'm out. Catch you in the next one.